Attention pro athletes. Want to secure your financial legacy and thrive off the field? Oakbridge Wealth Management, led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, is your dedicated financial planning ally. But don't take it from me. Take it from the Dallas Cowboys' Tyler Biadasz. He says Chris set goals financially and has been incredibly impactful in my journey in the NFL. Experience our customized, comprehensive approach, trusted by top NFL players. Don't leave your financial success to chance. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakbridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakbridgeWM_ANICETE, and let Oakbridge Wealth Management guide you across the goal line.
Bernstein again, big opening, pass 5, pass 10, a bird loves a man, and he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards out the carry.
Hello and welcome to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
We're doing all right. We got one of my favorite people. Oh, can you hear Maple making a appearance?
I can hear her, yeah.
Yeah, she's just like that. He doesn't want to ever go to sleep. He just wants to party. As BC knows from this weekend, Daddy just wants to party. I am thrilled to have Brian Calhoun here because we had a very nice conversation about a lot of things. And also Brian has a lot of strong thoughts about the Badgers, which I appreciate because we need them right now, good and bad. But I'll punt it back to you, Matt Perkins.
I mean, you might as well just pitch it to your former teammate. Brian Calhoun is back, returning champ here with us once again. Last time we saw BC was right after the spring game, so we figured it was the perfect time, midseason check-in, to check back in with one of our favorite All-Americans. So BC, it's great as always to see you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me back on again. So the last episode must have been a good one. So I appreciate it, guys.
BC, you better get ready to come back a lot, dude. Not only you're a handsome young man, but you know football.
Oh, I appreciate it, Bernie. That means a lot coming from you.
Also, let's be real. You would have been the best running back in this offense.
Yeah, I think
you could catch. You were fast.
Yeah, it's offense built for maybe guys who have a little bit more lateral quickness. James White would have been really good. I think Anthony Davis would have been really good in it. There's some guys that this system kind of fits more so than others, but you can be successful either way.
Well,
totally. But
we will talk about all of that here coming up.
We got to get our gamble read
before
in
we
here.
do, though. Got to remind all of the good folks listening at home, on the road, wherever you are consuming this podcast, that we are presented by BetOnline.ag, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline. Head on over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts. I will start it off by punting it back over to Bernie and letting you two backfield mates pave the way.
These ad reads, listen, I know we have to do them, but they take forever. But it's all good, Matt Perkins. You do it as fast and as beautifully eloquent as possible.
It's okay.
BC, let's get into the nit and grit of Braylon Allen. Only got 18 touches, 21 if you count the catches. I don't count catches. It was a fist fight game. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry. Your thoughts on the run game and why are we not? We've always hitched our wagon to it. Why are we not doing that now? I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah, and especially in a game like this, right? Like there's certain games on the schedule that you knew, all right, like this is going to be a fist fight. We're going to run the ball and only pass out of necessity. I know early on, I think I remember seeing a quote or something from Coach Fickel about he wanted to keep both the running backs around 18 carries or 18 touches. I think the game plan can shift just because obviously Ches is out with injury. In my opinion, yeah, I think he's a guy that in certain games you're like, all right, man, This is going to be the game, right? There was times, and I remember Coach White and Coach Chris when I played in '05. There was times like, hey, we're going to feed it to you and feed it to you often, right? And like, so you have the mentality of like, you're going to carry a lot. There's games where, I think I had 40 some carries against Bowling Green one year that, in '05. I think I had another 35, 36 against North Carolina on the road. So, I mean, there's just games where you got to rely on it. And I think this was a game that you should rely on, especially when, Tanner went down. You literally turn around and hand the ball off, to Braylon Allen and see what he can do.
Yeah. Listen, I agree. I think we have that workhorse. He's proven, and he was having a good game. Listen, I'm all for keeping him at 18, 20 touches. I'm happy for him. However, everything has switched. The second Ches went down, our backup is a fullback, which I love, but it's not the same. This offense is not built around Jackson Aker.
Right.
Although I do enjoy watching him run, I enjoy watching Braylon Allen get the ball a lot. But this, we always went into the Big Ten games. It's funny how you say Bowling Green and North Carolina, because games you wouldn't even think you would rush for 40 times. And, Iowa's a fist fight. Their defense is good. Right. Their offense is horrible. And also, we were at the game. It was cold, rainy, and windy.
Yeah.
All those things to me, I would be like, man, chin strap buckled.
Right.
Make sure you get your, everything set up because you knew it was going to be a violent run attack.
I think it's.
But outside of, give me it.
All right. I think it's a change of philosophy, though, right? So, the offense that we played in, it was the run set up the pass, right? And so no matter if it was Bowling Green, no matter if it was Michigan, no matter if it was North Carolina, Iowa, we ran the ball to set up our pass. And obviously we had some really good dynamic playmakers, Brandon Williams, Owen Daniels, Jonathan Orr. So we ran the ball to set up our play action, to set up our screen game. And so I think right now we're kind of in this weird identity crisis about, I don't know what we can hang our hat on, if that makes sense. And, and I hear and read about everybody's like, well, he doesn't have the right players for the system. And I guess I'm confused by that because, 3 of the top 5 receivers are transfers. Now, and I will say that CJ didn't obviously play a lot last year as a true freshman at USC. Paulin didn't really play a lot. Now he's probably one of our better receivers. I think Chim has enough skill set. It doesn't matter which system he's in. He can be successful. Bryson Green, right? Played in a similar kind of open offense. So, when you say he doesn't have his guys, I don't know exactly what you mean. I think you can make your argument for defense. Sure, that's not the right system for some of the guys we have. But offensively, it's like all those O-linemen are all 4 stars or 5 stars at some point, whether that, we could talk about the rating system another day, but at some point, you bring in 2 transfers. I think 1 O-lineman hasn't played yet, right?
Renfro still has yet to take a snap.
Right. And so when you say we don't have the right players, I don't know exactly what you mean. And I guess I'm frustrated because I think a lot of it is the optics of how it looks, right? We're 4-2. You shouldn't be upset about that, but it doesn't look like a lot of good 4-2, right?
Even the wins have been kind of ugly, right?
Yeah,
they've
tough,
been
tooth and nail. Yeah.
The Rutgers game was an ugly win.
Yeah. And
that was an ugly win.
And shout out to Rutgers, right? They're much improved, but right, it was not pretty. But I just feel like things that I guess frustrate people and fans and me being a fan now is that, the penalties. We've had a bunch of games where we've had 5, 6, 7, 8. I think, we reached double digits one time. The drops, and I think when you have those things, the turnovers, I think we've had a couple turnovers almost every single game. It doesn't matter who the coach is. When you have those things, you're not playing winning football. And so therefore, when you're going against an Iowa team that has a backup quarterback, right? I mean, the game before he was 9 for 21, right? To me, it's all right, cool. We're going to attack the quarterback and we're going to run the ball and make this a 4-quarter game. And I just feel like although it was only 15-6, it really didn't feel that close because we had no flow because you back to the identity. You have no idea, what are we going to hang our hat on? And right now, I don't think we have that. And I think that's what's the frustrating part is like, yeah, we're in a transition year, but it ain't gonna get any easier. I was telling Bernie the other day, it's like, cool, we're done with divisions after this year, and then you're gonna add 4 teams in the next 2 years. It ain't gonna be easier. So this was the year to be like, all right, let's ride it out, and then let's get our guys in here and see where it goes. So I guess
I mean, they're not just like adding teams; they're adding 4 top 25 teams,
right,
right?
right.
And
Like
all
that
those teams are
conference is balling.
yeah, it's balling, and it's divisions. At least when in talk terms of getting to the championship, should be in Wisconsin's favor because they're in the West, which is probably the worst division in Power 5 football, or has been the last couple of years. I mean, it's bad.
And it's been the worst West division since almost it started. Like it's not good, and I think that's what people are frustrated about because it doesn't look like we have an identity. It doesn't look like we have to hang our hat on something, and it's a pretty weak division.
First off, I would love to be in the West with our teams that we had. Oh my God, it would be great. We're going to the Big Ten championship every year. With like maybe Iowa would have put up a fight, but like that would have been it. You mentioned not having an identity. I don't disagree with you. I think we're missing. I think on offense we're missing one piece. I think we have QBs. I think the O line needs a little help, but I think we're missing not just because you're here, but a Brian, like a Ches Malusi, a Brian Calhoun type guy, right? To mix it up. I love Braylon Allen, but in this offense, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the piece we're missing.
Yeah.
But I think we're still trying to figure it out. Listen, we got guys who didn't come into this offense who are still learning. It's not like they just showed up and like, here it is.
100%. I agree with you, and I think I told you the other day. I personally, if you look at historically the guys that we've had at the running back position, right? Like the guys who are bigger, back guys. You think about Ron Dane, you think about John Clay, maybe PJ Hill's in that category. Like I think they flourished at Wisconsin because we were a run first to sub the pass. We had a tight end and we had a fullback. I think that's their style of play, and I think that allowed them to be great. And obviously Brady, I think, fits in that category. So I don't like just 6 games in, looking at it from a scheme standpoint, I don't know if it's like the absolute optimal, offense for him. It is for more of a lateral guy because that's the one thing it concerns me is when you see Braylon back there in shotgun. All right, his first movements are usually lateral. For a guy that's almost 250, that's usually not the case. I want to go downhill and be able to see what I'm looking at. And sometimes when you're in a shotgun and you're coming from one side or the other, you don't see it as clear. And so I think that's something that's an adjustment. We're going to have to figure it out this season because, I know we got...
BC, talk about that again because a lot of people don't get that.
I've been saying it all year. I've been saying it all year.
Yes, but BC has actually done it.
I know.
I think I did it like 3 times. So, but talk about the different mentality between coming from the side of a QB, then standing 7 yards back and looking at everything kind of open up from both sides.
Yeah, and I personally liked it. I wasn't the biggest guy, but I liked it because you had full vision of the entire field, right? And so then after every play was called, I'm able to look at the defense. You know your landmark, you know your read, and then you can play football, right? But when you're in shotgun, and if you go back to those years in 2005, like we didn't run a lot out of shotgun. We actually probably never ran out of shotgun. We did a lot of screen passes out of shotgun, but we didn't run anything. We ran everything from the eye because you have a fullback that protects you, right? Makes you right. Thank you, Bernie. It makes you right, but it also allows you to see the field. So when your first step's lateral, a lot of times your shoulders are already turned. You're not able to see and square up. And it's just, I think it sometimes puts a running back at a disadvantage if that's not the style of play or that's not your game, right? If you have some maybe smaller, shiftier guys, it's easier to jump cut and get from hole A to hole B. Like I said, Anthony Davis would have been amazing at this because he was so good at jump cutting. James White the same way. It just naturally tends to be maybe smaller guys. But if you look at the NFL, right, Derrick Henry has a fullback and a tight end, and he's in I a lot. He doesn't run a lot of his runs from the shotgun. Now, if you go down to Miami and those guys are all track guys, they run a lot of their stuff on shotgun. Like it's a proven thing. You know what I mean? So I just think that he does better going downhill. But the offense is changes. So then now we got to figure out, well, how are ways that we can adapt to the guys we have? And I think that's probably my biggest frustration is I don't know if we've adapted what the coaches have brought in to the players that we have. Like, what does Braylon Allen do really well? Does he run power really well? Does he run, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we've adapted. What do the receivers run? Do they run slants really well? Do they run crosses really well? Do they run curls really well? Like, I don't know if we've adapted to the guys we have. And I think that's why we see such, like Tanner has 3 touchdowns in the year. Like, we ran Joel Staub out of town by the end of his career, right? Like, wanted Cone to be replaced with Graham Mertz, right? Ran Graham Mertz, said he wasn't good enough. Like, but Tanner has 3 touchdowns in 6 games, right? To me, that needs to be addressed. You know what I mean? And I guess that's the frustrating part. It's like we wanted change, which I'm all for. I always support Wisconsin, but like the optics doesn't look great when we say we're doing this, and Tanner has 3 touchdowns. Now, don't get me wrong. I like what Tanner's brought to the table. Like, he's athletic and he's moved. But, like, 3 touchdowns for 6 games? Our skill guys are better than that.
Way better. I think this might be the best group of skill guys. When Ches was healthy, I think we were fantastic.
I would put that group up with a lot of guys. Absolutely.
I think you're missing like an Owen Daniels or
right.
Who am I blanking?
Travis Beckham.
I do like Tucker. I think Tucker's going to be a stud before he leaves.
Ashcraft, he's definitely looked good, but he's also been thrown into the fire very quickly because of the lack of depth of the tight end room. And I think we've seen some issues there. I think that, Rucci has had some ups and downs for sure. He's dropped a couple balls. I think he had that fumble in one of the games recently. And I think that there is still, I don't know. For me, the offensive issues actually really stem on the offensive line, and I know that it's going to be as big a transition for that position as any because of what they're asked to do, how they're even lining up, and how they're setting, right? And so that is expecting a lot, but at the same time, offensive line is at least supposed to be the signature position for Wisconsin, and it's been an underwhelming unit for 3 years now. And they're being asked to do more pass protection, obviously, in what they're doing. And you've seen one of the issues, they haven't been able to hold up for longer in pass protection, so they go to these quicker and quicker passes, and that's why you see Tanner Mordecai ending up with, in some games, averaging 4.7 yards per attempt, which is awful, which is like genuinely awful. And that's why I think it's a large reason why Wisconsin is 115th in the nation in pass efficiency offense. That's bad. That's really bad. And if you look to more advanced stats, look at like PFF, like for Wisconsin, like the team receiving report is like they are the 5th worst Power 5 team in receiving grade. The only teams that are worth are Iowa, Boston College, Northwestern, Utah, and North Carolina State. Like, it's pretty rough. And 2 of those teams don't have their quarterbacks in Iowa and in Utah. So
these stats are very hard to hear.
It is. And they're hard to hear, especially when we were expecting a lot.
Well, okay. We'll talk about expectations, because I think everyone's expectations, mine included, were going to be, we're not rebuilding, we're getting right into it. But then, I started to mold a little bit. BC, question for you. Do you think are we coaching to what we want to coach, to like the scheme that we want, or what you said, are we coaching to the guys and the pieces we have right now?
I think it's probably an internal battle of both, right? I think, you had this game plan of like, this is what we want to be and this is what we want to do. And then I think trial and error, sometimes those things work. And more often than not, lately, those things haven't. And so therefore, this is kind of a clashing of 2 worlds. I do agree with your point, Matt Perkins, that like The offensive line is, I think, the biggest transition because they're asked to do a lot different stuff. And I guess, the struggle is going to be, like obviously we're bringing guys in next year as far as freshmen, but like that group is going to have to just get better, right, in the offseason and get more acclimated to that system. But I think the expectation, but here's it. Okay, I think the expectation was realistic because number one, you go out, McIntosh makes the decision to get rid of PC, right? Which is like a hometown kid. He's had a lot of success there. It was just stale. Then you decide to hire Fickel over Leonard, which probably top 3 or 4 all-time Badgers ever, right? So when you make those decisions in kind of in a row, the expectation is high. You go out and get a guy like Luke Fickel who has been in the playoff. The expectation is high. Their media team did an amazing job to create buzz in the spring. Those set your expectations to be high, and so.
And also, we got a lot of guys in the transfer portal.
Right.
So,
So like you can't say, hey, we want more exposure, which I'm not saying they have, but like programs are like, we want more exposure, we want this, they want this, NIL, XYZ. But then, if you don't perform, maybe the expectations are high. So, I think it's a little bit of both. But like I said, the Big Ten's changing. And so you had to make a splash higher. I get it. But now it's like things are going to get tougher. And now it's like, well, I think high school recruiting is going to be kind of changing in the next few years because now you're going to spend, maybe half your class on high school kids, maybe half it on recruits. Maybe not Wisconsin, but in general. And like, so who's really going to give some coaches 4, 5, 6 years to build a roster, right? Because now with all this money being thrown around, if you're not successful, I don't know how some schools are going to be able to operate if you're not being successful. And I think that's where we got to be, careful because we got to get buried in a hurry. Because, like I said, we got 2 new teams next year, then 2 more teams next year. So the expectation is always going to be high, right? And as it should be, right? We need to raise the level of play, not lower the expectation.
I think we can give our team a couple years to let them actively recruit and get the guys.
Bernie, we can say that objectively because, like, we were there. You were there for 5 years, like, so the process, right? Like, but nowadays, those days of guys being around for 5 years,
that's true. And then you had a guy who was there for 3 years, stepping in for 2 years.
You know what I mean? So it's just the landscape has changed.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the recruiting class is solid for next year, though.
That's nice, but like, when does that come? So if you are
3 years on,
when does that come to fruition? Like when those kids are like, when hopefully, typically it's really not until your 3rd year on campus that guys are really, really contributing, right? Historically, maybe a 2nd year push, but how many like 1st year true freshmen are like? You usually have 1 or 2 a class, right? This year there is 1 true freshman who's really contributing. It's Tucker Ashcraft.
Yeah.
In this class, and that's it. And so, now in college football in 2023, 2024, next year, my God, we're getting old. We are seeing that if you're not having success in 2, 3 seasons as a coach, you're gone. You're gone, and it's not good enough. And it is. I don't think that McIntosh sort of went all in with Fickel in a lot of ways, right? He easily could have just let Paul Chris keep going, named Coach Leonard the next guy, and it would have been smooth and would have been safe. But he, went, to a guy that a lot of people really wanted, and it has, the early results are not what people wanted, and people get mad about it because they've been built up and told that things are going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Immediately, and there's just a general lack of patience across the college football landscape. It doesn't help when you see Graham Mertz now being like the number 1 passer in the SEC, right? He's putting up more yards than anyone else down there. It doesn't help when you lose that game against Iowa, obviously, but the Washington State game as well. And now things tricking out. Oh, Luke Fickel is 2-13 against ranked opponents in his coaching
Right.
career. All these sort of things start to come out, and then the doubt starts to creep in, and it
Well,
becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think that we're getting too early for that personally, but
yeah.
there are plenty of people out there who
Oh,
are
100%.
saying that, this is a big issue.
Well, and here's the thing. So, hypothetically, say we go 9-3 this year, say 9-3 the next year, maybe 10 and like 9-3 the next 3-4 years, right?
Mhm.
Like to me, is as Badger fans, is that good enough? Because historically, we've been a 9-3 team
Mhm.
historically for the last 25 years. So I understand the splash. I think people lose patience because now they look at all the resources available, the transfer portal. Um, obviously, I think Wisconsin's brand, a very strong brand. And so I think people just lose patience. But like we go 9-3, 9-3, 8-4, 10-2, right? But that's what we've done in
But
20
BC,
years.
you
Like
did
literally, we
you
had every third year, there's like a really big year, and then
Mhm.
you're like 9-3, 8-4. Like, 2000, was it 2001, Bernie? They didn't go to the bowl game,
yeah, we didn't go to bowl
right?
game.
And then
That was bad.
so like there's times, and I think people do need to be patient, but it's the landscape has changed. And if you wanted to make a big splash, you did. I still think it's a good hire. But if we're 9-3, 9-3, and like you said, if he's 500 against ranked opponents, or we no longer have an edge at home field advantage, you start looking at people sideways, saying like, "Hey, man, you know,
But BC,
you know what I mean?" Like, everybody's
do our expectations change due to now the what is it, like the difficulty of, it's like gymnasts who do difficulties,
Mhm.
is the difficulty of the Big Ten now? Do we have to change our bar because we're accepting four amazing teams? We're not getting any
Right.
schlubs out there. So like, is a 9-3 bad based off of the new Big Ten? I think 10-2 is not bad, but 9-3 I would not be happy with.
Right. Well, I mean,
We're all going to be ranked. We're all going to fist fight each other.
and here's the thing: when the playoff moves to 12 teams, right? You can assume that maybe I wouldn't say assume, but maybe the top two teams in the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, right? That's 6 teams. Probably the ACC champ, right? That's 7 teams. So in theory, maybe you have 5 at large, a smaller school, whatever, right? Like you add in 2 teams. It's like, would we be good enough? And obviously, this is obviously looking in the future, but being good enough to be in that conversation with the idea of like we might be 9-3. And I don't know if 9-3 gets into a 12-team playoff.
But I think 10-2 might.
It may be depending on the year, but
Sure.
so I think that's a really great point, Bernie, is like, do expectations change? Right? Because at the time when the move was made, I don't think it was out that
I think
USC and UCLA were
USC
coming.
and UCLA were
Yes.
already announced. Yeah,
So
Oregon and
we just
Washington
didn't.
weren't, but when they made the move, that had been announced earlier in the fall.
Yeah. So I'm with you, Bernie, but I just feel like you should, if like they say,
I
right? What
see.
does Mike Tomlin say? The standard's the standard. Like, if this is our expectation, no matter the surroundings around us, I don't think we should move that. However, I think we're all smart enough to be like, it needs some time, and then we should evaluate, after a certain point. However, I don't know if the current landscape allows coaches time like that. And especially like Perk said, if Mac just went all in, that's the standard. Right? There's only been a handful of coaches that have been to a playoff, and one of them is our coach, right? And
Very true.
so
That's
that's
a good
high
point.
expectation.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because I think a lot of the discourse was that the program had a ceiling under Coach Christ, and his ceiling was going to be that 10-2 was a 10-2 team, maybe an 11-1 team, but wasn't going to reach the playoff. And Fickle was supposed to be the guy who broke through that ceiling.
Yeah.
And the first year results haven't been what people wanted. And it is frustrating for a lot of people. I know, and it's hard to tell people, "Hey, wait, just hold on, trust the process." Right now, when we are in a day and age of, you expect things to be fixed and handled immediately.
Yeah. Uh, yes. I think it's like when I said earlier, the optics of it, like
Mhm,
the losses and just the games in general haven't looked maybe up to people's standard. I think if you're 4-2, it's like, all right, Iowa beat you by a field goal in a fist fight. Braylon had 25 carries for, you know what I mean? Like, I think if it was different, Washington State probably should have won that game. Didn't play a great first half, but like, I think the optics of it just looks like, whoa, it's sinking, and I don't
mhm.
think it's sinking, but I think people just expected to us play better. Penalties, turnovers. Those are things you can control. Doesn't matter your scheme. You can just control your penalties, turnovers, uh, kicks out of bounds, like things like that. It's like, what is going
Don't get us
on?
started with kicks out of bounds.
It's just like
Wait,
stuff like that. I think is
right.
what's frustrating.
I think our expectation when you hear the air raid, you got Phil Longo, you get these great coaches, is we're going to score 30, 40 plus
Right.
points a game. And to score, I think everyone's expectation was that. Mine was too. I'm like, oh, we're going to score 30 points a game
Right.
and win because we just outscore people. And that's not happening. So
Yeah.
everyone is freaking out.
Mhm.
I think we just got to stay the course. Yes, maybe coaches don't get enough time to be like have a generation of a student
Yeah.
because the generation of a student could be 2 years now. It's not
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. I think we just got to hold it out and say, let's give him a chance. He
Yeah.
is a proven coach. Let's let him get his dudes in and let's see what he comes up with in the next. Listen, this year might be a tough year for us. I don't want to say it, but it might be. But hopefully next year and year and everything's
Did you
building
see the
up.
schedule the next year?
Yes, it's not getting easier.
Yeah. Good
It's a
job.
beast
It's
of
not,
a schedule, and I will say,
it's,
you talk about, they haven't had, like, a dominant win. I guess Purdue was the closest thing that they had to a dominant win, but even that, like, they didn't really pull away until the 4th quarter. I mean, they're 1-5 against the spread. I don't like to talk gambling very much, but Wisconsin has covered 1 game, and that was the Purdue game. Besides that, they have, you know and so we talk about, they haven't even had, like, that dominant performance where you see the real sparks of the offense, be like, "Oh, I see, what this really could be." Once you really, because even right now, like, oh, even if they get the guys in there, I still don't know if I see,
Right.
what it is or what it could be. We haven't gotten the glimpses of that yet, where we've had like 3, 4, 5 consecutive drives, where you're getting a touchdown every single time. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is like it's humming, right?
but we're doing
It's
three
humming like
plays
the second quarter
and
of
punting.
BC's Bowling Green game, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. But
something
we're
like that.
playing. We're three and outs for.
Yes.
Wait, we can't get the ball rolling
Ugh.
Yeah.
either. We can't find what's working because back in the day, we weren't that much three and out.
Yeah.
You were moving the ball. Like I remember that we were moving the ball. All right, I want to pivot to the defense because I still think we have some great skill guys, but I think we're in a complete new scheme. BC, I would love to pick your brain on this. I think we don't know the run fit, like our run fits.
Hmm.
What are you seeing out of the defense that is a little more concerning?
I think the lack of discipline and just what do they used to always say, Bernie, when we're playing? It's like play with your eyes. Like I feel like
Mhm.
guys like are all over the place. Um, and I think Hunter Willer's a stud. He
Yes.
was going to be good no matter what defense
So
they
I
were.
think the skill guys are good.
I think he's really good. I think Hallman, everybody wanted to write him off last year as a freshman, like playing really good football. Um, I think the lack of depth or maybe the lack of explosive D line play maybe is coming to effect. Like we don't have a true Herberg, Watt, Beagle type. Now, different offense, but we don't have a kind of like game changer, right? So then
Like
you got,
a Benton.
yeah, and so then therefore you got to play like cohesive, strong stout defense. And I think with the style of play, I think it's probably built more to stop more type of spread kind of teams. You got right, you got more DBs, less D linemen, et cetera, et cetera.
But we're still getting gashed on the.
Yeah, and I think now I think this side, the defensive side, is going to take the most adjustment. I think not only from a scheme wise, from a coaching wise, I think also just emotionally. I'm just going to throw it out there, like it was just rough for a lot of them, right? No matter what the scheme, but like they're that side's gonna take the most criticism because that side has been good for a long time, right? Like even pre Jimmy and Wilcox and Aranda, like they've been good. And so I think it's very tough on the eyes when our defense is getting gashed, right?
But I can't say they're not bad. I
No,
don't want to go there. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I think exactly what you're saying is true. I actually think we have good guys in
I
positions.
agree. I
I
agree.
think when you watch and you really watch the run plays that we're getting killed on,
Yeah, I think
you
they're
have
outside.
two dudes in the same gap. You have, I think people are holding
I
where
agree.
their eyes are supposed to be, and then they peak. And when you're a lineman, that's the best thing you ever did because then you just blow them out.
Right.
And if you peak in the wrong gap, like if you're a D line peaking in A gap, but the backer thinks A gap is his hole to his responsibility. Now you have two dudes in that hole and nothing in backside A.
Well, and I'll go back to this, Bernie, but isn't that coaching?
I totally think it's coaching, but I think it's experience too. You have dudes who are playing a 3-4
Yeah.
with
I mean,
it's a
but
different scheme and everything.
yes.
I do think it's coaching.
Yes.
Totally.
But your gap's your gap, right?
We're
And
also
so
in game
yes,
6 with a spring game. So I
right?
do think
Like,
there is that.
yes, your gap's your gap. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's
It's
just
just hurting me to watch
it
like
is. It
the runs.
is. It is.
It's just painful
And
because we know, and
and
especially Iowa, they're going to run. They can't throw. Deacon Hill, we had him. We know we didn't even. I feel bad. I don't want to talk bad about Deacon Hill, but he had 37 yards.
yeah,
Like, come on. I could literally, I said this, throw a bowling ball that far.
yeah.
Um,
No,
so
I think you're right. I think there's some misalignment. I think there is some mental errors. I think there is a lot of
errors.
thinking, not a lot of playing ball.
I would say that's hurting the Badgers maybe the most, even on
Yeah,
offense. A lot of
and
thinking.
and so I think that's the frustrating part because we're not used to
BC,
seeing
I
it.
love talking to you.
I think we're not used to seeing it. And here's the thing:
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I know Waller plays a lot in the box now compared to before, but to me, it's never good when you're free safety. I mean, technically, is the lead tackler. Like it's never good. I know he plays in the box more, so I get it. But like when he's your leading tackler by far, and so I think mental errors, eyes in the wrong place, maybe wrong technique. That part can be fixed in coaching. Um, but it's like I also would like to hear after the season from the coaching staff of like, what kind of guys are you looking for? Right? Like so you can give an educated answer to the fan base to say these are the guys that fit this scheme. So we know, like, because I really don't think people know. Like when people say scheme or my type of guys, like, well, what does that mean? So then we know, so we don't have to be as critical. When you're like, well, guys are his eyes in the wrong place. Well, are you looking for, smaller rushers? Are you looking for big stout guys? Are you looking for smaller backers, bigger backers? Longer corner. I know they've talked about longer
It's
corners.
been
I have heard
taller
that.
and longer corners. That's the
I have
only
heard
thing we
that.
know. It's the
I
tall,
have
long,
heard that.
tall DBs, and that's
But like to
about it.
me, those backers are stout. They're fast. I think they play reckless and out of position at times. But like to me, that's an average or slightly above average group of linebackers because they can run, they can hit, they're physical. I just think they're all over the place. I think Hunter, obviously, and Hallman, like that to me, they have the pieces, but I think it'd be better if you like, all right, these are the things to run this defense. These are the guys we need. You know what I mean? And I don't want them to call out people and be like, well, this guy can't play for us. But I think it
Sure.
gives people a true identity of like, this is the program we're building by the players we're bringing in. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I can go on.
Another thing, I think our backers. I totally agree. I think it's coaching. I think they play the way we want backers to play. They're fast, they're physical,
Mhm.
but I think they are trying to do too much. I
Yep.
think there's some guys on the team, and when you try to do too much, you
You do
never do
less.
too much. You do less. I think one thing I would knock our backers for, and I think this is the new scheme, is when they're dropping back in pass, they get to their zone, but they're not finding the guys. And it's me being a couch potato, and I'm not a defensive guy,
Yeah.
but it just seems like we're not finding the guys, so they're open. We're
Yeah,
getting back,
they're covering space.
they're covering space, and they're not finding. So I think this is the new scheme, right?
Mhm.
It's not easy to just start doing that. Like
100%.
everyone, even I'm like, oh, you just turn around and look for the guy. Dude, you have 10,000 reads. You're calling the defense. You're making guys. You have to understand, like, yes, you watch film, you do all these things, but that's me talking after being in the same offensive scheme for 5 years. Dude, I
Right.
can tell you what every single person did,
Right.
what all the calls, but I was there for 5 years.
Right.
These dudes are here for 6 games.
Yeah. So let me throw this back on you. Do you think, and Perk, you too, do you think if at this point in the season, right, 6 games in, if something's either too complicated or we don't understand it, we should be just playing base offense, base defense, and not more so defense? Like, if there's things that guys can't do, we can't do it, don't know how to do it, then at this point, then we should just be in base or whatever it is they call, because I feel like when you do too much or you try to install too much and guys aren't equipped to handle it, especially with this new system, I think their heads out there just spinning. And so instead of playing, you're a half step late, you're in the wrong gap, guy goes fly, you know what I mean? Like, I think something's got to be done, right? Especially like at 15-6 Iowa, after like we just had a bye like 2 weeks ago.
Yep, and the game before that was Rutgers, is a team that wants to run the ball first too. So it's not like they hadn't been working closely on run fits for, you would
Yeah.
expect, a couple weeks. And so I imagine it is, but like you said, I mean, like, we know especially defensive backs are asked to do a lot of different things, right? We know they're asking them to play a lot more man. Like, they played basically zone.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all they did for 10 years. And so they're being asked to play more man. And that's why you're seeing Hallman be more of a ball hawk, because he's in position better. He's just better as a man corner anyway
agree.
than
I
he
agree.
was as a zone corner. Whereas Alexander Smith, I think it was the flip side. I think Alexander Smith was a better zone corner than he has been a man corner. But it's not like Smith has been a problem. I
Right.
also just think that when you going back to Big Ten play and talking about like the personnel and the people that they want, they're small. Like you mentioned, BC, having your safeties leading tackle is rarely a good sign. And then, Maitre, the slot corner, is not a big guy. He's not a big guy. So if you think about, like, okay, from the defense they had last year to the defense they had this year, basically you're taking away a linebacker to put in a slot corner. And that slot corner is 70 pounds less than
Yeah.
that outside linebacker. And couple that with the lack of depth and playmakers on the defensive line, which they really need. Like, they really, really need James Thompson. Now James is hurt. James Thompson's been the only defensive lineman who's really sort of made multiple big plays.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're being asked to do things that they can't do. And so something needs to change in terms of at least a stopgap for this season, because obviously you don't want to throw away the season but by any way, shape, or form. But you can't keep asking guys to do stuff that they can't
Right.
physically do or mentally handle. Attention athletes. Do you want a frictionless and tailored financial planning experience to secure your future? Well, look no further. Introducing Oak Bridge Wealth Management, the premier financial planning firm for professional athletes. Led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, our team provides a unique and comprehensive approach, ensuring your financial success both on and off the field. We understand the unique challenges you face as a professional athlete, from managing cash flow habits to planning major business purchases and navigating complex contracts. That's why we've developed a proven process, working closely with our strategic partners to provide seamless solutions for your unique financial journey. Our services evolve with your career, offering short, mid, and long-term goal setting, portfolio optimization, real estate investments, and more. As you transition to life beyond the field, we support you with career development and philanthropic ventures. But don't just take our word for it. Top NFL players like Chase Boulier, Tyler Biotish, Alec Ingold, and more trust Oak Bridge Wealth Management to guide them towards financial success. Troy Dye of the Minnesota Vikings says, "I really love the work that Chris and the rest of the Oak Bridge group do. I especially like the honesty and transparency when it comes to setting up financial goals and plans that best fit my needs and situation. It's time to elevate your financial game plan. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakBridgeWM_Anicete. That's OakBridgeWM_ANICETE. And join the winning team.
No, I would say BC. It's a good question. My opinion is I can go two ways. You either are like, listen, 2023, we're just rocking with it. We're gonna coach the guys. We're gonna coach the guys the way we want them to play, and they're all gonna get used to it. And if this season stinks, it just is the way it is, and we're gonna come out next year having this much more experience. I don't think no coach ever has really done that.
Yeah.
But not saying it can't happen. Or, it could be a mix. Like, we're just going to try to do some things because I want them to see it. I don't think it's going to be a straight base, but I do think we have to get the fundamentals right before you start doing all these other things. I don't know what the 3-3, if our D line is supposed to be these 300-pounders, like they're supposed to be huge dudes, or they're not. I don't know that, but we've always had these interior dudes who were studs.
Right.
You look at Sheehy was a beast. Keanu Benton. We've always had dudes. When you have three of them, and you still have 5 fat old linemen and 3 not so fat D line, and you have 3 linebackers, but it's just, we all say it's like 6 versus 5, depending if there's a tight end or not, but BC, you have to defeat one guy and there's nobody left.
Yeah.
Right. And so do I think it's base? No. Do I think it needs to get more aligned with base just so we can know what we're doing and bring some heat here and there? Yeah. I think on offense, let's just keep doing it. What is Braden Locke good at? And let's do that.
Yeah.
I would, if I was the coach, which I'm not even close, I'd be like, hey, Braylon, get your chin strap buckled. Jackson Aker, every time we pass the ball and I don't want to throw it to it back, you're going in to block whoever's blitzing as fast as possible. O-line, strap it up, bros. Like, we're going to do it. I'm not stopping. So I need you guys to jump on board. We're going to start throwing some deep balls. Hey, Green, you had some fantastic catches. Let's go deep and get them. Like, we're gonna keep rocking. But Braylon, you're going to get more than 18 carries. I just want, I know that's my offense. Yeah. My defense is, hey guys, we're not in the right gap still. We're still figuring it out. Okay, fine. We're going to stick to base, but I want to see some 4-man fronts, or maybe we're going to mix it up a little bit, start some run blitzes, whatever it is, to start confusing. Because you can go into this week and kind of mess around a little, but you can't go into Ohio State. BC, are you going to be there?
I mean, like, I was all gun-ho before this Iowa game, and then I was like,
I'm going to be there. But I just love the opportunity to go watch the Badgers.
Oh, 100%.
It's something different when they're on TV. Like, yes, I can talk all this smack, but I want to watch. I want to be there. But okay, neither here nor there. You cannot go into that game, Ohio State, and not be 100% aligned with what the game plan is.
Yeah, they're gonna be tough,
or it's gonna be bad.
Oh, and so I'm with you, Bernie. Yes, I mean, I can't what you say. I think it, and I don't watch the defense as closely, so I don't know the percentage of time they're in 3-3-5 or if they're in 4-3. Like, I don't know the percentage. I'm assuming that they do mix it up, and there's a little bit of mismatch. But I just think we're in a weird place because, like, the way we played last Saturday, we can go. I mean, you play like that, we can be 7-6, right? Like, the way they play, like, that's that. I mean, that's realistic. I know people don't want to hear it, but the way they played last Saturday, right? You could be 7-5, or
you could be. You absolutely could be, because if you can't move the ball, then when you do start moving the ball, you turn it over, and you don't have your run fits when the other team is trying to run the ball out of the run the time out of the game. That's a pretty bad recipe there for the Badgers. And one of the things that has been, I think my 2 biggest pet peeves on the year, we already talked about one of them, kickoffs out of bounds. Like, dude, you literally have one job. You have one job, and it's to not kick the ball out of bounds. and it's happened 5 times, I believe now. I
which
believe
is
that
wild.
5 in
Wow.
6 games. That's
The fact that it even got to 5, right?
yeah.
Like after probably the second one, it's like, all right, buddy.
What's happening? What's happening here? And the second one is the lollipop snaps that are throwing the timing off on the
Yeah.
offense.
So what has anybody addressed that? Like I
But
haven't heard anything. And
they've asked about it in press conferences, and they said that apparently Bort was uh sending them back too fast earlier in the spring. So they asked him, and like they were too low or something. So they've asked him to like slow it down or something like that. All I know is that even, I'm not a former college football player. I'm not a former college offensive coordinator, but my eyes tell me that that is throwing off the offense because I watch a bunch of other teams who run quasi similar schemes out of the shotgun, and their shotgun snaps take less than half the amount of time to get to the quarterback.
too
And
fast.
I don't know. That's what that's
Huh.
what, or too hard or something like that. That's what I
Mhm.
heard at one point. So either way, they're not getting to the quarterback fast enough, and then they have less time to process everything. It's slowing down getting the handoff to Braylon. I mean, we saw times even on one of Braylon's touchdowns, Mordecai had to do a freaking 40-inch vertical to grab one twist in the air and hand it off to him in the Rutgers game. Um, and it didn't come back to bite him there, but it's definitely thrown off the timing a lot, and that's for everything. And in an offense that is so reliant on timing and repetition, especially in the short passing game that you're supposedly using to open up the run game and those bigger throws, that it throws everything off. And that has been one of my biggest frustrations. Uh, just getting that on pace and getting that on track. And I know they brought in Renfro to be the center, and he hasn't been healthy enough
What's
to play,
what's the
but
update on him? So I thought he suited up the last couple of games, but hasn't played.
mhm, they're being very hush hush about it.
So that usually tells you that it's probably something more serious because usually when you suit up, that means usually you're available to some
Hmm.
extent.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. And what it was his ankle, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh man. Well,
Listen, what about but our
yeah,
kicker's been
those snaps,
fantastic.
those snaps do bother me. But to me,
Yeah.
it's like, well, okay, it's too fast or too low or too hard. But then it's like now we're the complete opposite. So now why can't we be somewhere in between? So literally, he and maybe he is. He should be spending time after practice every single day throwing to a pad against the wall, and a coach sitting there timing, catching, whatever it is. And he may be doing this, but like that's how you correct things,
Hmm.
right? And so we're 6 weeks in and it hasn't been corrected. And at first when I saw it, I was like, that looked weird, but I'm not a sinner. That looked weird. But then I was like, it keeps happening and happening and happening and happening, and nobody's addressing it. So I mean, that's weird, right? And
They
so
must be addressing it. They
I'm
got to.
sure they have to, right?
They
Like
have to be.
there-
They just might not
there's
have another
like
option.
a guy that would be like, hey man, we need to get this together, right? Like,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
so I don't know if it's like in his head or like what's going on, or even a quarterback would be like, cool, we're gonna do 50 of these suckers after practice.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so
There-
I don't know the
yes.
situation, but it does seem very weird and odd because I don't know if I've ever really seen anything like it before.
Right. I think it's very bizarre. I will go with this. Our kicker, Vakos. He's done very well in my eyes.
Love it. Love it.
I think he's done great.
But he doesn't do kickoffs, right?
No, he doesn't.
No.
It's Van Dyke doing kickoffs.
Yeah. BC. Now I've won.
Van Dyke got replaced last game, right?
For the kickoffs, I wasn't paying close enough attention during the
I thought
kickoff.
he got replaced, but I could be wrong. But maybe I read that somewhere. But when I saw 5, I was like, "What? This doesn't make any sense." Like,
You
I don't
average 1 out of bounds a game. Like
Well, I
Barry
mean,
would have freaked out, dude.
we've played for coordinators, special team coordinators, where they would lose their head if it goes
Not
out
just
of
especially.
bounds.
What about Coach Alvarez?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, every single coach would be yelling at you. Different whole everything. You can't get yell at kids that much anymore, or at least that aggressively anymore. Because BC, you and I maybe not you, but I was getting MF'd. People were getting MF'd up, down, left, right. A, B, A, B. You're
Hey,
getting that. You had like 35 lives.
Hubert tried to MF me all the time, and I just run away and go somewhere else. It's like, hey man, I'm tired, man. I ain't got time right now, man. I'm just trying to make it every play, man.
Yes, and I think eventually he just gives up on you, like not in a bad way, but he's like, I got to get out of here. Dude, BC, real quick, your thought on that 4th and 1? Go for it or kick a field goal?
I would have went for the points.
Oh,
And I say this why? Because number one, we haven't been that great in short yardage situations. Number one, and it's that early in the game, right? It was
the first drive.
Yeah, I'm saying it was like I thought it was the first or second drive, but like that early game, it's going to be low scoring. Traditionally, the Iowa-Wisconsin game is low scoring. Kick the points, right, and put yourself in a position like we're up 3. Because sometimes when you're up, even if it's 3 points, you feel a little bit different, like you're in control, right? Instead, you get stopped, or and then it's a deflated feeling, and then you start looking at the play sheet like, well, what are we? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do? I would have kicked it. I understand the reasoning, but it's not like, here's the thing, Bernie, it's not like we have 2 tight ends, a fullback, and a running back.
We went with 14 personnel, which to me was a little doofy.
Right, but it's not like that's not what we hang our hat on.
That's not totally.
To me, it's like, cool. You do that 99% of the time before, right? Because you put 2 tight ends, a fullback, and we do what we do.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he went under center too.
He went under center. It was the first snap of the game that he took under center.
I think
it was.
But like, why?
Matt Perkins said, "Kick it." I said, "Go for it. Do a different play. Do something that's worked. You gotta get a yard." Do something else.
Was it a long yard? I don't remember.
It was a yard. It was a regular old yard. It was nothing.
Otherwise, so if you're not, to me, it's like I wouldn't go under center.
It was the longest yard.
If you're gonna do what you normally do, then just have him quarterback sneak it. Right? Sure. If you're gonna do what you're gonna do at a shotgun, which is just weird to me because you're already 5 yards away. But then, like, that's the one downside, in my opinion, is short yardage.
But at the same time, we don't go under center. So
I wouldn't have done it under center if that was the case. What's your best short yardage play, in this system? Right. We're going to call that.
And you also put in 14 personnel, so then they're going to bring all their dudes. Everyone's in the box. Yeah. It's exactly what we don't want at least on the air raid. You want everyone spread out. And Braylon Allen usually can get a yard.
Oh yeah,
come on.
I would have spread or went 4 wide, 2 and 2, and then run an RPO, run a quarterback keep, whatever. But like
run a draw and let Braylon go
all year before that play. No, we were in the center at all.
That was the second or third play all year they'd been under center. The other ones were when Will Pauling threw a pass on the fake Philly special, the Badger special, or whatever they want to call it, was one time, and I think there might have been one other time this year. The only other times they had taken a snap under center.
Maybe I kick it now.
I just don't get it.
This is why you have other coaches. Because BC, I would never coach a team without you. I'd be like, BC, go for it. No. Okay. We're going to kick. Matt Perkins, no. Oh, I got a lot of people against me. I'm probably doing the wrong thing.
Especially like our kicker is proven to be a weapon.
He's good.
Sure.
And so like let kick, get 3 points, get up. And let's figure out, okay, let's see out of our game plan, 30, 40, 50 plays, what's really going to dial in it. And let's hone in on those plays. I don't know. I'm always in favor of going for points. But then again, if I had Bernie in front of me, it's like, go for it.
Well, yeah, but that's the difference. That's the thing, right? They don't have a lead blocker for that. Right. They don't have a jumbo set, a barge formation. They have Braylon, and at this point, they have Braylon and Jackson. And yes, both of those guys probably could be fullbacks in a different life. Yeah. But at the same time, they're pretty much always lined up as, single backs now.
We could drop X's and O's all day.
Perk, remember all those years of fullbacks? You can either hand it to the running back or you can hand it to the fullback.
Yes.
Like Ingold scored all of his touchdowns off of that.
Yes.
I don't know.
Like
I didn't have a
I don't know
yeah.
if outside of Bernie, obviously because I'm biased, but like I don't know if outside of like Brady Ewing, like I don't think anyone could. Brady Ewing can get 2 yards with the best of them at all times.
Yes.
John
Yes.
Chanel, the exact same way. When it was 3rd and 1, they do that little fullback dive, just go right over the guard. It was going to get 2 yards
I
every dang
agree.
time, and they don't have that.
I miss seeing that.
I mean, what I would have done, you put two guys I put Jackson Aker in the backfield, shotgun, because that's what we're normal. Put him and Braylon. It's going to be a power to the right, and I
Oh, you mean
motion a dude.
like a Wildcat?
No, I leave Tanner under, but I have him
Oh,
split
okay. Oh, I got
backs,
you. I got you.
and I motion a dude because it's going to be man to man. I'm still spread out. I motion a dude, the tight end, to literally over the tackle and have him block the freaking guy in front of him. Jackson Aker, it's power. Pull the guard, like that's it, just power. Could that get a yard? I think so.
I'd
I
like to
can't
think
change.
so, but
I'd like
I
to think so
at
also.
this point don't necessarily trust our offensive line on every play because
Yes,
it's been a struggle. It's been a real struggle across the board.
they
Across
have
the
very
board.
good defensive run blitz on that play though.
Mhm.
And so I haven't watched a
Because
lot.
how you're not going to have four?
See.
I mean, yeah.
How have they like run blocked?
It's been fits and spurts. Fits and spurts. I mean, I haven't I feel like would have to dive into some of like
Yeah.
the next gen stats a little bit more to see how many like yards before contact they have been averaging, but just from the naked eye, it feels like they haven't gotten a ton like the times that they've had the big runs, it's like Ches made people miss in the open field.
Yeah.
Braylon runs someone over and gets some extra yards. It doesn't feel like they have been consistently blocking to get the back open in the second and third level.
I find it oddly weird. Not just this year, but like the last few years, like people said about O-line play has kind of declined, right?
Mhm.
But which is probably fair to say, like over the last couple years. But it's also the highest rated recruits that we've ever had at that position.
Correct.
So I guess I'm just confused, right? Like what happened to getting those guys that we had in the early 2000s and mid 2000s and early 2010s? I get it, it's different. But it's like we've had some of the best O linemen ratings wise the last 6 years. And somehow our O line play has declined the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't know what the reason is. I just find that kind of odd. Like we need. I just find that odd.
Mhm.
Just from what I don't know this Badger team like I know like I knew ours, but we had a bunch of bullies on not in like a terrible way, like steal your lunch money bullies, but like guys who would try to bully the defense.
Yeah.
And if you weren't on board, like do you think like Donovan Rail or Clinkscale, Dan Benning were gonna be like, oh yeah, dude, cool. Or we saw Ben Johnson. That's a big dude. The second he says, dude, you're not doing well, you're gonna do whatever you can. And I don't know if we have that mindset. Like take your school, like your lunch money.
Yeah. I
You
don't
are
know.
not better than me,
There
no
is
matter what.
I would say, Bernie, that's a really good point because I think there is less of an edge than we've seen before. They don't have the
It's the
psychopath.
mentality.
They don't have the John Moffat in the group who's going to,
Ugh,
do something a little, maybe a little bit questionable, but is going to be the guy you want on your team when push comes to shove.
man.
Yeah, I just don't know the O line like this. I don't know them that well to know that it's
Yeah.
not. But the leaders of the offense were 100. It wasn't the quarterback. I mean, it was 100% the O line. And
100%.
even when I was there with Brooks, like Brooks was the leader of our team, but the O line was, Ben Johnson, Al Johnson. These dudes were telling you if you were not good, they were telling you weren't. Like they were telling you better get
Yeah.
your
If you
together.
if you missed a hole, they let you know about it.
They let you, dude. If you stepped on their heels and you didn't do the right thing, and if you come back the wrong way, like these guys knew what was up. They were well coached, and they literally knew what you were supposed to do. And if you didn't do it, or you didn't hit hard enough, or you didn't do whatever they wanted you to do, they told you every time.
Yeah.
And I think it seems like that could either go you could either go downhill and be like, man, I suck at football, or you can be like, you know what? I'm going to go harder than these dudes. I'm going to prove that I'm better than these guys are telling me I'm not. Coach Huber, you gave me a compliment. I want 100 more.
Yeah.
Like that. I think we were, now I don't know, but I think we were different dudes. Also, we were work our butts off and then
Yeah.
go party our butts off.
And
Not saying that that's good or bad, but saying we did everything 100%. I don't remember doing anything like 50%.
And I hate being like, well, we did it back in our day, right? Like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But it just, I think because JT ran for 2,000 yards in 2019, right?
And
Is that the year that we lost in Rose
and
Bowl?
17 and 19, yeah.
17, 19. So you could arguably say, right, since 2020, so which is COVID year, and now, so that's 20, 21, 22, and this is 4 years, right? Right, people have been saying it's been in decline, but we've also signed some of the better recruits. So it could be mentality. I think it's easy to say it's coaching. I know kids are different now. Like I get it. It's probably a combination of all those things.
I will say though, they have one kid who's a senior in high school right now who's going to be a freshman next year who has the nasty in spades. It's this kid Emerson Mandel
Oh
from
yeah.
the state of Minnesota who's going to play guard. Who already looks like he's a Big Ten guard. I'm very excited about him. I think
and I thought that kid from Whitefish Bay a couple years, his senior tape was pretty nasty.
Joe Brunner, yeah.
Brunner,
So
yeah.
Brunner, I am a little bit surprised Brunner hasn't really gotten any
Yeah,
run.
me
He's
too.
someone that I not only really like, but B, plays center, and I can't imagine his snaps would be any worse. And C, is someone who really impressed last year, finished, was playing with the twos for most of last year as a true freshman and through the spring. And so he's someone that I would like to see as well. But we don't know. We're not in the
We don't
meeting
know.
room,
We're
so
not
it's
there.
hard to know, right? And people are like,
Yeah,
oh,
we're not.
where's Nolan Rucci, the 5-star recruit who's like a redshirt junior now or whatever, a redshirt sophomore now? It's like why isn't he seeing the field? Why, and we're not in there. We don't know. And so at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like we can't assume to know more than the coaches.
100%.
That would be
100%.
idiotic. But we can
100%.
throw our opinions, however formed or misinformed that they are, especially when it comes to me, about what is transpiring on the field. And now,
Well, buckle up, guys.
buckle up.
It's gonna be fun.
But I don't think that I think that the doom and gloom is a little bit overblown.
I agree.
They lost an ugly ass game to Iowa. How many, you guys lost ugly ass games to teams you shouldn't have lost to, didn't you?
Remember
Too many times.
Northwestern? No, we lost Northwestern at Northwestern, and then we put up 40 points on offense and lost.
Yeah, that was bad.
You talk about a team divided. Like the offensive guys wanted to fight the defensive guys. We just scored 42 points and lost. You gave up 300 yards to a freaking freshman. Sorry, I'm still pissed about this.
You're allowed to be.
But so I don't know. I remember walking back in the locker room, people were pissed. But
maybe that's just the kid that people could voice your opinion and be pissed. I don't know. I just from these losses, like we lost to UNLV one year, like that really hurt at Camp Randall. So like I've been a part of these horrible losses. We've lost to some teams at Camp Randall that you're like, how on earth did this happen? It's like a miracle that somebody else beat us.
I think a lot of people forget those, right? Like,
you forget them. You definitely forget them. A lot of them were fist fights.
Yeah.
They were down to the end, but you do forget them. Yes, we forget them. But now our expectations, and I think this is a problem from you had Russell Wilson, so we should always be Russell Wilson.
Right.
You had Jonathan Taylor. We should always be. But these are listen, I'm the same way. I think the same way. I'm not like, dude, we went from Jonathan Taylor to Braylon Allen. Like, oh my God, how did this keep happening?
Well, we've had some really good running backs, but they're all not the same. I just want to be honest.
Totally.
Like they're all not the same.
Yeah.
Right. We've had really great, and our lineage of running backs is amazing, but they're all not created equal. Like Jonathan Taylor is different, right? Like he's different than a Corey Clement. Okay, like, and that's fine, right? Like, but yes, I agree with you. But like, I think we were 12-1, Jonathan's first year, right? That was the Orange Bowl year,
yeah.
And then we lost to Oregon in his third year. I mean, but I don't know, right?
Were we 12-1 that year in 2005?
We were 10-3, but the
10-3.
next year, right? Next year they
Oh,
were
the
12,
next year, that's what I'm forgetting. We were 12-1. Right.
and then
They beat Arkansas, right? They shut down
here's the thing,
McFadden in that game.
Brett's second and third year, they went 7-6,
Right.
right? Like,
And then it was
well, then they were
10-win
good,
games for
and they
the rest
brought
of his
Russ in. But here's the thing: Russ team went 10-3, 11-3. They had no business losing 3 games that year. They
No, but they lost some
11-3.
nail biters.
But it's just wild. Everybody's like, "Oh, Russ is that was the best team." It's like they were 11-3. Like they were 11-3. You know what I mean? Like the 2017, was that the year that we lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship by 7?
In
Was that 17 or 18?
17. Yeah, that was
Yeah, so
17.
think about that. That was a 21-14 game. I was there. Right? Like that may change things if we win that game, right? Even the game that we lost to Penn State, I think in Big Ten championship, like by 7 or 8 or whatever. To me, this program is not far off. It hasn't been far off. But I just hope things as fans, I think we just need to be a little bit patient, right? Like let's come back down to earth. Remember, there's always been some small rough patches here and there, and just let's ride the wave. Like we can evaluate in 5-6 years. Okay, we can evaluate, but I think to do it 6 games in, although it doesn't look good, it's not necessarily fair.
Right. We got to support the program.
Right.
And we could start dinging it in a year or two when hopefully this is not the truth, but if it's not going well in a couple years,
harder. That's the test. Does get harder. The test does get harder.
Hey, listen, there were years when we would play Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Iowa.
Yeah.
There are years when you didn't play Michigan and Iowa, or Michigan and Ohio State. So it's always gotten harder.
Yeah.
Now we are adding some other teams, and we're also playing Alabama. Like we're doing things. Listen, I think we have to do those things to elevate the program.
I agree,
but we also have to be competitive and potentially win some of these games
because the program was amazingly consistent, and it knew who it was.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't care if you liked it. Didn't care if you liked it. Didn't care if you liked 3 runs in a row. Didn't care if it was 3 yards, 4 yards, 3. Didn't care because that's who we were for so long. Right. So I think the sooner this team finds an identity, whatever that is, whenever it happens, I think that's when you'll probably see the full, fruits of the labor. But I think everybody's just hoping that it's sooner rather than later.
I would agree. We should end there.
I think it's a perfect place to end.
Get your identity, please.
Find your identity.
I don't care what it is, just get it.
Yep, and don't be a victim of identity theft.
There we go.
So, and that also means don't let the ball be taken from you. Please stop fumbling the ball. With that, I think we are going to wrap it up here. Like Bernie said, with our returning champ, Brian Calhoun. Thank you, as always, for hopping on with us. Thank you,
guys,
everyone, for tuning in wherever you are to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and our friends at Oak Ridge Wealth Management. So, until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.